My 5 best bets for week 2 Sunday NFL action. We got a full game total, we got a 6-point teaser, and we got 3 player props. A very important part of this channel is being transparent, being honest, because my only goal is to win together. But if there's no honesty here, we can't do it to the best of our abilities. So let's recap our 4-3-1 record so far in the 2024 NFL season. On Thursday Night Football, we took the Ravens against the Chiefs under 47, and we were so lucky to come out with a push, right? Sometimes we're going to get unlucky. Sometimes we're going to get lucky. We moved to Sunday where we had the Titans plus 4.5. That was the unluckiest loss of, I think, in a very long time. We also lost on the Panthers plus 4.5. Wasn't even close, but we made up for it. We took the under in Patriots versus Bengals, under 43. Easiest bet, maybe of my entire life. We took the under in Chargers versus Raiders. That was also another easy one. And then we took the over in Buccaneers versus Commanders. Again, another easy one. So we go in to Monday Night Football with a smidge of profit, and we make more profit taking Brock Purdy over 5.5 rushing yards. He had an 11-yard run, easy as cake. Thursday Night Football, week 2, we take the Dolphins minus 1.5, earned. Bills just commanded the game from start to finish. 2 interceptions from Tua in the first quarter. What are we going to say? But also, prayers up for Tua Tagovailoa. Obviously, the worst part about sports are these injuries. Hopefully, he can make it out okay. Just want to let everybody know. And I think it's a good way to step back and realize that, we are betting on sports and it is a lot of fun, but these guys are real people. His career may be over. I really hope that it's not, but at the end of the day, prayers up for Tua. Before we get into my 5 favorite picks for NFL Week 2 action, all I ask, you press the like button. It's the best way to support this channel. Again, all of this information, all of these bets are given to you for free. Best way to support, just press the like button. And if you haven't pressed the subscribe button yet, these videos will be coming out all the time. Make sure to set on notifications because, of course, lines do move. I can't really control it. I make my bets early on in the week. I send it to my Dub Club subscribers. There's a 2-week free trial in the episode description if you want to sign up. If you don't, you just want the free picks, all I ask, hit the like and subscribe button. All right? One more thing before we begin. Remember, BetMGM is the sponsor of this channel, and they have an offer to get you $1,500 paid back in bonus on your first wager. All you got to do, download BetMGM, use code JustGridiron, and deposit at least $10. And if you lose your first bet, you'll get the amount that you put on it back up to $1,500 in bonus bets. And if you win, congratulations, you won a bet. But remember, gambling problem, call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. Must be 21 or older. Terms and conditions apply. For my first pick, we travel to Minnesota to take the over between the 49ers and the Vikings. These two teams faced off in 2023 and the game ended 22-17. But the final score doesn't really show how much that these offenses actually feasted. Realistically, both teams could have scored 30. Kirk Cousins threw for nearly 400 yards, and the Vikings were held to 22 points because they failed to score a touchdown. First and goal at the 1-yard line. Then they got another opportunity, first and goal from the 2-yard line. Plus, they missed an extra point. They didn't convert on any of those. The same is true for the 49ers. CMC fumbled in the 10-yard line on their first drive of the game, and Jake Moody missed a 40-yard field goal. Jake Moody doesn't miss 40-yard field goals anymore. Add that all up, 19 potential points off the board in a game where 39 points were already scored. Both teams had tons of success passing over the middle, and neither quarterback was really pressured. Only 1 sack was recorded in that entire game, and I don't really see that changing in this year's battle. Last time the 49ers faced the Vikings, they didn't have Trent Williams, and they didn't have Deebo Samuel, which is absolutely massive. The 49ers offense with a healthy Trent Williams is unstoppable. Brock Purdy has played 1,435 snaps with Williams, and the 49ers have averaged whopping 0.18 expected points added, which is EPA per play, on those snaps. That's from Ben Solak of ESPN. In the 147 snaps Purdy has taken without Williams, that EPA per play drops to 0.00, just an average offense. This 49ers team with Deebo and Trent Williams is as good as any offense in the NFL and should be power rated #1 when they are all healthy. Now, CMC, I don't know if he's going to play, but I don't think it's an issue. Jordan Mason looked awesome behind that 49ers offensive line, which was getting massive push against that Jets solid defensive front. The Vikings defense is likely a tad overrated after stomping all over Daniel Jones, who we're actually going to talk about later. Get ready for that. It's a good unit, but the Jets are just better. And we saw the 49ers offense turn that Jets defense into Swiss cheese. Sam Darnold might be a decent quarterback. He finished week 1 with the 4th highest EPA per play and the highest completion percentage over expected. That's CPOE. That's going to be a stat that I reference a lot in these videos moving forward. Those numbers are probably going to regress because it's freaking Sam Darnold and he faced the Giants. But still, the Vikings have surrounded Darnold with some solid weapons, so he doesn't really have to play above his skill set. And we also got to give a lot of credit to Kevin O'Connell, a guy who's continually just turned terrible quarterbacks into fine regulars, right? All Darnold's got to do, give the ball to Justin Jefferson, give the ball to Aaron Jones. I think they could put up 20 plus. And the other narrative in this game is that Darnold is facing his former team, right? He was Purdy's backup last year. I think that the year in San Francisco helped him tremendously. And going into this matchup, I think Darnold's going to be pretty well prepped for how the 49ers defense operates and the different coverages and stunts that I think they're going to throw to him. Now, Kevin O'Connell, again, proved that he could move the ball against this 49ers defense last year. They just had outlier events that kind of kept them from scoring. And the Vikings offensive line held firm against a good duo of Brian Burns and Kayvon Thibodeau. Burns and Thibodeau combined for 2 pressures, and Brian O'Neill, the Vikings right tackle, was PFF's #1 graded tackle last week. Christian Darrisaw is also one of the best tackles in the game. This duo should set up for tons of success against the 49ers D-line that only managed to sack Aaron Rodgers once. For how good the 49ers are in totality, the defense is surprisingly lacking. They ranked 15th in EPA per play last week and allowed a 45.8% success rate, which was the 21st worst in the league. In 2023, the 49ers defense ranked 10th in EPA per play, and the Niners lost, though, Eric Armstead, Chase Young, Javon Kinlaw, Randy Gregory, Cleveland Farrell in the offseason. The new acquisitions on the defensive line, I think, will eventually step up, but in week 2 against the Vikings, who have a really good offensive line, I don't see the 49ers having a ton of success getting to Sam Darnold. Now, Jordan Addison will not play in this game, which is a definite blow, but the Vikings offense, I think, is good enough to overcome this. I think the 49ers have a real path to 30 points in this game, but I'm not going to keep the Vikings offense out of it, as I think the market perceives the 49ers defense as a top 5 unit. I just don't see them like that, right? 10th in EPA last year, 15th this year. Kevin O'Connell has proven that he can beat this 49ers defense as well. I think this is like a 30 to 23, 24 type game. I bet it at over 45. The line is anywhere from 45.5 to 46.5, depending on what book. I would take it all the way up to 46.5, as long as it's below the key number of 47. But realistically, I think this goes into the 50s. So the first pick, over 45 to win 1 unit on BetMGM. Let's get moving to our second pick. Zamir White of the Las Vegas Raiders, over 38.5 rushing yards. Now, we talk a lot about, or you've probably heard, overreaction week. Now, a lot of people are putting those overreactions into spreads. Good for them. I'm putting them into player props and totals and teasers, because I don't think that spreads are the most inefficient market right now. I think spreads are the most efficient market in the NFL, but there's overreactions in other places, and I think we have one here. Zamir White has gone over 38.5 rushing yards in each of his last 5 games, averaging 88.2 rushing yards during those 5 games. Last year, Zamir White ranked 9th in yards per attempt when contacted at or behind the line of scrimmage. He went over this line in week 1, recording 44 rushing yards. But again, he was disappointing. He only averaged 3.4 yards per carry. And then you combine in the game script with his disappointment in overall performance, right? Game script, Ravens are big favorites. We don't expect the Raiders to run. We expect them to be throwing from behind. If it were that easy, we'd all be on an island somewhere in Cancun. Does Cancun even have islands? I have no idea. But let's get back to the main point of, we got to respect the Chargers' run defense against Zamir White, right? I think that's what held him down. It wasn't Zamir White is just bad at football now. Give credit to Jim Harbaugh, who's known for not only being successful running the ball on offense, but is also one of the best coaches at scheming to stop the run on defense. During the 4 years that Harbaugh coached the 49ers, they were consistently near the top of the league in stopping the run. The same held true during Harbaugh's days at Michigan as well. The Wolverines ranked 7th in 2024 and 9th in 2023 in yards per rush against. Now, as the head coach of the Chargers, Harbaugh has instilled the same emphasis on stopping the run that was on full display against the Raiders on Sunday, as the Chargers ranked number 1 in rush EPA and number 1 in success rate against the run. And Zamir White still had 43 yards and a couple of nice runs. Now the Raiders are going to face the Ravens in week 2, which is a perceived harder matchup, but I don't think it is. And I don't think that Antonio Pierce is going to make drastic changes to the Raiders' offensive approach, which is to run the ball and set up attainable third down opportunities for Gardner Minshew. We live in a new world. The Ravens' run defense can be worse than the Chargers. Last year, they gave up 4.3 yards per rush, which ranked 20th in the league. They did hold Pacheco to 3 yards per carry in week 1, but that seems to kind of be a trend, Ravens against Chiefs. Pacheco only averaged 2.8 yards per carry in that AFC Championship game. I have much more faith in the Ravens' full body of work than what they did against the Chiefs. And even after they held Pacheco, in terms of grading, in terms of the deeper numbers I look at, like EPA, they ranked 15th. Zamir White's rush attempts line is set at 10.5 and is juiced minus 150 to the over, or 11, depending on kind of where your book is, meaning White should be around 11 carries, or if not, or more. Now, the Raiders, with Zamir White as their leading rusher in the first 4 weeks of the 2023 season, ranked 4th in rush EPA per play and averaged 4.73 yards per carry. That's when Zamir White took over. He can do this. The game script, again, is also another reason for keeping this line lower. But this is kind of my way of backing Raiders plus 9.5. I don't really see Gardner Minshew keeping it close with his arm. That's why I kind of want to take that out of the equation. But I think that they can have success on the ground with Zamir White and, of course, Alexander Mattison looking good. I think that the Raiders are going to continue to give Zamir White opportunities to win because in reality, like Alexander Mattison, I think we know who he is at this point. He's a mediocre back, and he had 5 rushes for 19 yards. Now, he was great in the receiving game. Maybe that's more of his role. But in the run game, it's still Zamir White's backfield. So if we look at the math, if Zamir White can average 4.3 yards per carry on 10 carries, he's going to have 43 rushing yards. And I think he's going to go over his carry line. Now, this prop I found and looked deep into because of Rhythm. It's a new app that uses AI and data modeling to predict props and game outcomes. This has projected Zamir White for 13 attempts at 55.1 rushing yards this weekend. Just another data point that supports this prop. I highly recommend trying Rhythm. It's a free app that allows you to make your own model based on factors you find more important. The link to download it is in the episode description or the video description of this YouTube video. Highly recommend taking advantage of free data whenever you can get it. And it's not just Rhythm that has this edge. You look at any fantasy projections, they're all between 55 to 57 yards for Zamir White in week 2. The line is moving. Obviously, I can't control it. I am sorry. I think it's around 40.5 now because I did bet this on, I think I bet it on Wednesday or maybe even Tuesday. That's fine. I would take this up to 44.5. So anything in there, you're good because then you still have that 10-yard delta between the line and our projection. So take it up to 44.5 for the Raiders running back Zamir White. Let's talk 6-point teasers. When you're betting with me, you can't be afraid to get down and dirty. And these two teams provide excellent teaser options in week 2. We have overreactions from a Steelers win, overreactions from the Giants and Daniel Jones looking as if would lose to Georgia on a neutral field. No team is as bad as you think they are after week 1. And there is also a bajillion systems backing both of these two sides. Let's start with Broncos Steelers. I'm going to pay to see the Steelers win by more than 8 points on the road. They did exactly that against the Falcons in week 1. And the last time they accomplished that feat was in 2022 against the Panthers. And then the last time they were on the road and won by more than 9 points was back in week 11 against the Jaguars in 2020 when Big Ben was still slinging passes. These two teams had different results, obviously win-loss. But if we look at EPA per play, the defenses were separated by 11 spots, right? The Steelers were great. Broncos are pretty good too. And the offense was separated by 4 spots. The Steelers do not have a good offense at all. It's also somewhat of a tough spot for the Steelers defense in particular, considering they just played a road game in Atlanta, traveled to then Denver to play their second straight road game in high altitude. It's still early on in the season, and playing in thin air can definitely tire out defenses, especially those defenses who didn't have a ton of work in the preseason, especially a team like the Steelers. They're probably not that used to it. Despite pulling off a win against the Falcons last week, the Steelers failed to score a touchdown. They kicked 6 field goals en route to an 18-10 victory. The last 25 teams that failed to score a touchdown in a game have gone 6-19 in their last 25 games. This is also a really low total, which is what I look to attack on teasers especially. I don't see the Steelers winning by 9 or more. I know Bo Nix is terrible, but it's not like Justin Fields is any good too. The first leg of the teaser will be teasing the Broncos from +2.5 to +8.5. The second leg of the teaser, we're going to Giants Commanders. I told you it was going to suck, but I think this teaser is going to hit. In terms of the Giants, I track a lot of systems using Action Network Pro and on Rhythm as well. And there are more systems backing the Giants than any team this week, more than the Panthers. You probably thought I was going to give out the Panthers on this video. I might bet it secretly. If it gets a 7, I might bet it secretly, but like it's not going to hit and I can't give it to you. You're good people. You don't deserve me to give you the Panthers again. I'm not giving you the Panthers, but I am giving you the Giants because like I said, more systems back the Giants than even the Panthers, more than any other team. The 3 best systems, there's tons of them, 58%, 61%, but the best, which are like 62% or above, division dogs early in the season, dogs off 20-point losses. There's just so much regression going to hit for the Giants. And the Giants have dominated the Commanders. Giants are 7-2-1 since Daniel Jones took over in 2019 against the Commanders, including 2 wins last year when the Giants were still way below average. Now, Daniel Jones didn't play in all of those 10 games. He played in 7 of them. He's 5-1-1 against the Commanders straight up and has a career passer rating of 98 against them. His best season was in 2022 when they made the playoffs. His passer rating was 92.5. Clearly levels up against Washington, and for good reason. Washington's the worst defense in the NFL. We smacked the over as the freaking Buccaneers put up 40. Now, I know Baker looked great, but this Commanders defense is horrible. I cannot see them winning with margin. Even if the Commanders do have a lead, the back door is always going to be open because the defense is just that bad. They were the worst ranked defense last year in terms of EPA per play. In week 1, they were the worst again, and I watched them. They looked terrible. So, again, we have another low total, right? I was thinking about the Rams, putting them in as a teaser. I still like the Rams. It's definitely a lean for me. But again, it's a high total, more variance. But with a lower total, 42, 43, I don't see the Commanders winning with margin. So this 6-point teaser, the Giants from +2 to +8, as long as it's over 7, right? If you have +1.5 or even +1, that's fine too. As long as we get 7 or better. And then the Broncos +2.5 to +8.5, same thing there. Except for the Broncos, I want +8.5 there. Bo Nix is terrible. I want 8.5 there. So, but again, that's how I attack teasers. We're looking at games, 1.5, 2.5, teasing them up over the touchdown, or you have 7.5 or 8.5 favorites teased down when the total's below 44. Those are plus EV as long as you can get -120. So make sure if you want to play this teaser, got to get it at -120. If you don't, your book doesn't offer that. First of all, get more books. Second of all, don't play it. Teasers, 6-point teasers like this, above -120, not profitable long term, right? Some plays we just can't play if you don't have it, right? It's math. It's a math game, and we're going to win long term playing teasers like these. Giants, Broncos. We saved the best for last. Chiefs versus Bengals. I wanted to save the best for last as I think both of the props that I picked in this game have a ton of value, and the game itself is must watch. We'll be rooting for 2 Bengals players to rack up some yards, but it's important to tell you how we got here. The critical part of this handicap is T. Higgins. The whole situation surrounding him is bizarre. I'm going to read you some quotes. As Cincy fans have legitimately started calling him out for faking an injury. To that, he responded, "I just don't understand why fans think I'm faking an injury. When for me to get an extension for a contract, the deadline is over," Higgins told ESPN's Ben Baby on Thursday. "I just don't understand why they think I'm faking an injury. It doesn't make sense to me." He went on to say, "I prepare myself to go out there and dominate start of week 1," Higgins told ESPN. "Unfortunately, 4 days before the game," he's talking about week 1, "I had a hamstring tweak that I didn't think was as bad. So I made the comments I did after practice. I didn't think it was bad until, obviously, I got it checked out the other day. It was worse than what I thought." He continues, "I want to go out there and give my teammates 100% of T. Higgins. You know what I'm saying?" Higgins said, "I don't want to give them 50% and half-ass it just to be a presence on the field. They're accusing him because it's well known he's looking for a contract extension, and it appeared as if he was trending to play week 1 against the Patriots. Limited early in the week, but since he tweaked it, he didn't play. He wasn't even seen in uniform on Wednesday, hasn't practiced all week, and as I'm recording this, Zach Taylor said he was doubtful to play. That's why these lines have moved, right? I was expecting a game time decision, so that means we could have got these in earlier. I'm sorry. I really am, right? Lines move. So he's doubtful to play. Books have adjusted, but we can still make some money off. Just hear me out. So that brought me into looking for the pass catchers for Cincy. It's well documented that Burrow's wrist injury is more serious than the market originally thought. And he didn't exactly aid those worries in week 1. He only threw for 164 yards, and without Higgins, it definitely did not look great. However, the Chiefs are a team, and the Bengals +6 is a very popular underdog pick because he's had plenty of success against this Chiefs team in the past. And based off Burrow's comments that his wrist is, and I quote, absolutely not affecting his throws, I think it's safe to project a slight bump in overall yards thrown. Nothing crazy, but do I think he gets more than 164? Yes, I do. Especially when you consider that the Bengals defense just isn't good at all. I think. So if they have a shot in this game, they're going to have to put up points. I actually lean to the full game over as well. So where are these yards going to come from? Well, 8 different players caught a pass from Burrow against the Patriots. I'm not going to back anybody that saw 2 targets or less. Trenton Irwin, Charlie Jones. Nothing in the offseason, nor their time on the field, told me that they're going to be much of a factor this season. Maybe they're the ones to do it. I'm not buying it. I'm focusing on others. We are left with Jamar Chase, Andre Yosevach, Tanner Hudson, Mike Gesicki, Zach Moss, and Chase Brown. Now, the Chiefs, they have Trent McDuffie, an elite corner that's likely going to shadow Jamar Chase for the majority of the game, especially with T. Higgins out. If we take him out of the equation, right, we're left with 5. According to head coach Zach Taylor, Tanner Hudson is doubtful to play against the Chiefs as of Friday. That now leaves us likely with 4. So which 2 am I going with? Well, I wanted to pick one of the running backs, and I'll tell you why. When deciding between these 2, Zach Moss and Chase Brown, I think one has so much more value than the other based on overreactions from week 1. Chase Brown came into this season as the passing down back, but he only had 12 yards receiving and 11 rushing yards in week 1. Zach Moss caught a 12-yard pass, had 17 yards receiving, and 44 yards rushing. Brown was actually live in the passing game, averaging 3.0 air yards versus Moss at 0.25. The reason I wanted to target running backs, did we just see Justice Hill, the Ravens pass-catching running back, just went for 62 against that Chiefs defense, but they stopped Derrick Henry? I could see them stopping Moss, but getting bit by Chase Brown in the pass game. Now, this is not an overreaction to Justice Hill having a good game. The Chiefs allowed the 8th most receiving yards to running backs all of last season. Then they just got torched by Justice Hill for 62 yards. If Burrow's wrist still isn't 100%, which I am assuming, we could see a lot more design pass plays, short, intermediate part of the field. That's what he did against the Patriots. And Brown is the better pass catcher. Also, if the Bengals are in 2-minute drills to score, right, if they're down, I think if we could vulture a dump off for 2, 10.5 receiving yards at plus 130 is such a dumb line compared to 15.5 juiced for Zach Moss. So we're going to go Chase Brown over 10.5 receiving yards for the first of 2 props at plus 130. We have him projected at 16.6. Fantasy outlets have him anywhere between 16 and 19 yards. I would play this at 11.5 at minus 115 or better. I freaking love plus 130 on 10.5. 10.5s are still out there. I'm just saying that it's now more minus 115. If it continues to go up, let's say you're watching this on Sunday right before games, 11.5 minus 115 or better. For prop number 2, people might go for Mike Gesicki over Andre Yosevach because of what Isaiah Likely did. But Joe Burrow has never really targeted tight ends consistently. Gesicki's yards are inflated due to this, I think, because with all due respect, like Gesicki isn't that good. Like Burrow does have a long history, though, of targeting guys in the slot or his number 2 wide receivers. And that's what Yosevach is kind of becoming now. There's no Tyler Boyd anymore. T. Higgins is out. He had great word out of training camp and recorded the same amount of targets as Jamar Chase in week 1. I'm happy that I sniped this, right? Especially for my subscribers. I got him over 20.5. Again, it was before T. Higgins was announced, right? This was on Wednesday. I made the gamble. Now it moved to 37.5. Good for me. But you're listening, you don't care. You want to know, can I still play him at 37.5? We have him projected for 43 yards still. I should have put more money on it initially, but again, it was such a gamble because we didn't know if Higgins was going to play. So I just put a 1 unit, and now I'm just going to stick with it, right? Brown is still very much available as the buyer, and it hasn't really come for him because I think still people are overreacting to Zach Moss. But I would play Josevich at this current line of 37.5. I would just make the unit size smaller to 37.5. But 37.5, if we just do the math, it makes sense if you project 4 receptions. As his current line, 3.5, juice to -130. We have him projected for about 4.2. He averages around 9 yards per catch against the Patriots, so that'll put him around this number. However, if you do project a better game for Burrow, which I do, and I think it's totally fair to do, knowing the past history, knowing some rest, I think we could bump his projection, and that's how we arrive at 44 yards. But some fantasy projections are much higher than us, between 47 and 51, depending on where you look at. The low man, 47, the high man, 51. So I'm the low man on this. So those are the 5 plays. Andrei Josevich over, we can go 37.5. And just to keep it, I think this is fair. Because when a line moves that much, when it's only a few yards, we're going to keep the records the same. But when it's that big of a difference, what I'll do, if he goes over 37.5, we'll count it as a win. I won, you won, we all won. If he goes over 20.5 but doesn't go over 37.5, I'll count it as no play. I think that's fair, right? The subs got it. This one, maybe you skip it. If he goes under 20.5, it's a loss regardless, right? We all lost. So Chase Brown over 10.5 receiving yards. Andrei Josevich over 37.5 receiving yards. We have Zamir White over 38.5 rushing yards. We have the 6-point teaser, Broncos and Giants, tease from 2 to 8, depending on where. Just make sure you get over a touchdown, and the over 45 playable to 46.5 in 49ers versus Vikings. So those are my 5 favorite bets for NFL Week 2 action. If you enjoyed all the analysis, make sure to hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, because we're going to have NFL bets all season long directly on this channel. And if you're interested in getting ahead of the line movement, I highly recommend checking out the Dub Club subscription. And if you want to build a model of your own, check out Rhythm. And of course, if you want that first bet offer on BetMGM, use code JustGridiron. What if we went 5-0 on Sunday? Why not us?